Hey guys, one thing I think we all understand is that we're going to have to interact with people from other cultures. Whether it's face to face or online, we're going to have to communicate with people from around the world. So, this assignment deals with that. It's going to be in two parts. So, the first half, we're going to write some ideas down in our big ideas. And then the second half, we're going to look at a website so that we can quickly learn about other cultures to help us as we communicate with people from that culture. So let's get started. As you know, I live in Canada. But imagine I got in an airplane and flew to another country with a completely different culture than Canada, maybe Australia. And I took a small 1 year old baby from Australia and brought it back to Canada. So my question is would the baby behave like a Canadian or behave like an Australian? Would the culture of the child be Australian or Canadian? So I think you know the answer is that they would behave like a Canadian. They would adopt the Canadian culture. So let's go into our big ideas and write down a few thoughts here. So whatever notes I see here, I'm just going to insert a horizontal line and then just move down a bit. And so we're going to talk about cultures today. And maybe I will just put that in the middle as though it's a title. Maybe make it a little bigger there. So I hope you're clicking along and adding these notes as well to your big ideas. And so we're just going to put in a few major thoughts here. So number one, culture is learned, not genetic. So I'm not born with a culture. I learn a culture. And so that's a very interesting thing to understand is that we learn cultures. And so, it's not our fault. Whatever our culture is, it's not our fault. We're kind of raised that way. But it's also good news for the work world, right? Because this means I can also learn about other cultures. So that's the first major idea I want to share with you. I usually show some videos in class, some YouTube videos, and I'll add them in the links below, but I'll just talk about them briefly here. So this video here, and I'm not going to play it, I'll just skip around a little bit. It's showing a temple in India. It's where they worship a certain goddess, and the temple is filled with rats. 20,000 rats, it says in the video. And so you can see the rats are all over the place, and actually they're part of the work that's done in the kitchens. The rats are right there. And one of the honors, that it talks about in the video is if you can eat from a bowl and have a rat eat from the bowl at the same time, that's kind of an honor. Now another video I want to show you, again, I'm not going to play it, but this tribe in Africa is drinking the blood from a cow. And so they make a small wound in the cow, and they get the blood and they collect it, and eventually they're going to drink it. The cow doesn't die or anything, and I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings, but that's just what they do in this culture, as they drink the cow's blood. And in the last video here, there's a village where women have they wear these rings around their neck, and they add more and more rings every year until they have a very, it looks like a very long neck. In reality, what's happening is the neck isn't getting any longer, but the collarbone and the upper ribs are being crushed and pushed down. And so the idea here is that people behave in very different ways from around the world. People are raised with this very specific culture. And so what I want to say is this is culture is inherently logical. In other words, T-L-Y, I brought my T. In other words, we inherit it from our parents. Like I said, it's not our fault. We're taught that culture, and it makes perfect sense. Let's say that it makes perfect sense, or at least mostly, it makes perfect sense to the person from that culture. And although you might think it's wrong or evil in some cases, they might be able to explain it very carefully. They might even be able to back it up with science or logic and reason to explain why they do the things that they do. And so it's very important to understand that when we are interacting and communicating with people from other cultures, that to them it might make perfect sense, and to us it doesn't make sense, and we may never ever do it or choose to do it, but to the other person it's part of their daily life. And so we got to watch what we say. We got to watch our facial expressions. If we see somebody eating something that's very different than what we would eat, we got to watch how we communicate with people. And so here's what's really interesting about all this, and it might even be a hard sentence to type out, but I think it's true. If I was born there, wherever in those videos that we watched, if I was born there, wherever that is, I would be doing those things. Isn't that strange to think that it would be me, eating with rats or drinking cow's blood or stretching my neck maybe, and yeah, it just helps me to understand other people, and it specifically should help me communicate with those other people. Okay, just two more things. I want to write down this word, ethnocentrism. Ethnocentrism. And we can see some words in there, ethnic or ethnicity, and central. And so ethnocentrism is the belief that your race or culture is superior to other cultures. And so this is when you think that the way you do things is more important and better and more right than other cultures, and things that they do in other cultures may be wrong or evil. And so it's a dangerous way to think, right? This is where we get people hurting other people, and maybe even wars being started where they think other people are less human or not as equal or not as valuable as they are. So it's kind of a thing we need to watch for. Okay, and on a much less dangerous scale, a word that I'm sure we've heard before is stereotype. Okay, is an oversimplified label for a behavior or a physical feature. PHY. Okay, and so this is when we start saying things, for example, old people are slow, and this race is, smart, or this race is more athletic, whatever it is you want to try to say. And some of them might even sound positive, but we start treating people different when we put their entire race and culture into these boxes. So we want to stay away from this idea of labeling people very broadly. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the actual assignment, and I'm going to make a new video for that. And so this next video is going to explain in detail how this assignment works.